Yeah, okay. Okay. So hi everyone. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Ask Me Anything session with Parag sir. So for the last few weeks, we have received a lot of emails and messages from the user community that since CAT is approaching and they need guidance and on how to prepare in the last few days. So we had asked Parag sir to come live today and take all the questions that you may have for your the last mile CAT preparation. So before we begin, so Parag sir has 2 decades of experience of training CAT aspirants, and he has been teaching students since the time CAT was a pen paper based exam then too, and he is one of the very few people who has seen all the pattern changes of CAT. So welcome Parag sir, and thank you so much for doing this Ask Me Anything session with us.
Thank you so much for having me over the van. It's a pleasure. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Uh, so, sir, I before we start off, so sir, I had just one out of curiosity. I had a question, sir. After graduating out of JBIMS, so what made you, get interested towards training aspirants? So, if I may ask that.
So, after graduating out of JBIMS, I really did not get into training CAT aspirants immediately or directly. I also went the corporate route and I've worked with companies like Siemens and Citibank and ICICI. But right from my JBIMS days and even after that, while I was in my corporate job, I wanted to do something of my own. I mean, I had this entrepreneurial bent of mind really, and wanted to explore some options of doing something on my own. Looked at several possible options and then eventually zeroed in on education as my main option. I mean, I come from a family of educationists, really. I mean, my father, my mother, my sister, everyone has been in education at some point of time or the other. Father for the maximum time, I guess. And also, I had this kind of passion for teaching. I mean, I had not formally but informally tried my hand at teaching even through my JVIMS days. So, wanted to try something on my own, and teaching seemed like a good option. So, I got into teaching. Again, not as an entrepreneur initially. I was a visiting faculty with one of the top MBA training institutes initially, and then eventually launched my own entity, which was called CPLC. And that's how I got into it. And teaching is a passion, so thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's great, sir. That's great. So, I already have a lot of questions coming in. So, guys, please
Okay.
post your questions. So, we will take all the questions. Uh, so, we had floated a questionnaire where you had asked all your questions. So, we'll go one by one, and we have shortlisted a few questions which have been repeated the most, which most of you had. So, sir, can we start off with the questions?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Yes. So one of the questions that people have asked is that how should they prepare for their weakest section and weakest section, and how can they tackle their overconfidence when it comes to the strongest section? So many people have said that DILR is their weakest section. They are not being able to score more than double digits in this thing. They're not being able to cross double digits in DILR, but are being able to score really good in VRC. So in the last few days, how can someone, make the bridge between the weak section and the strongest section, the weakest section and the strongest section? What should be the preparation strategy in the last 29 days that they have?
Okay, so over the years, I've realized one thing, and this is also out of my learning. I used to work at SPJIMR Institute, and the then Dean, Dr. Shrikant, always used to say this, that we should build on our strengths and manage our weaknesses. I mean, he would always be very clear that don't use the word overcome your weaknesses, because it may really not be possible to overcome your weaknesses. But what is really going to take you forward is your strength. And I have seen that this can very easily be applied even in your MBA test prep. So if, for example, VA is your strength or quant is your strength, whichever section is your strength, your bulk of the score, your overall percentile is actually going to go up because of your strength and because of your stronger section. and not really because of your weaker section. That's what I have seen and experienced over the years. Having said that, it is also very, very critical to manage your weaker section. So if you are attempting to actually convert your weak section into your strength, or perform as well in your weak section as you do perform in your strong section, it may not really happen. And in trying to do that, you may really get demoralized. So don't try to convert your weakness into your strength, but I believe that you should try to manage your weaker section, and manage because there is a concept called as sectional cutoff. So we should at least try and manage the weaker section so as to clear the sectional cutoff. Now, I am sure most students would be going through mock tests over their preparation, and they would have seen, how well they are performing in their strong section, weak section, so on and so forth. So if let's assume there is a weak section and it has been proven that it is your weak section by the score and not in terms of whether you feel comfortable with it or not. There are times also when students feel that a particular section is my weak because I just don't like that section. Liking is irrelevant out here, actually. I mean, you should decide strength or weakness basis the score that you're getting. So if a certain section is your weak section and you're not getting a good score, ideally what you really need to do is figure out how much are you lagging behind in terms of clearing the cutoff. Is the problem not enough attempts, or is the problem getting questions wrong due to which you don't clear the cutoff? The experience that I have says that normally we are able to solve enough questions which will help us clear the cutoff, but it is the poor accuracy which brings us down. So in my opinion, what you need to do is identify which is your weak section in terms of not getting good enough score. Identify how much more do you need to do or score in that section so as to at least clear the sectional cutoff. Is it a problem of not enough attempts or of poor accuracy? If it is of poor accuracy, then try and see what is leading to that poor accuracy. There are times when out of haste, because we want to solve more and more questions, we make some stupid mistakes and bring down our accuracy. It's not worth it. Accuracy is really the most critical thing in my opinion. In an exam like the CAT, you may not really be able to solve too many questions, but whatever you solve, try and get it right. And then somehow manage your weakness so as to clear the sectional cutoff. Score in your stronger section so as to get a high overall percentile, because both are important, your high overall percentile as well as your sectional cutoff. So in my opinion, first thing is, don't try to change your weakness into a strength. Manage the weakness, get good accuracy, and see how much do you need to do in order to clear the cutoff. That's what I would say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So another question that is there in the live chat by Rahul is that at the starting of October, so he had scored up to 87 percentile in his mocks, but then he is right now scoring between 50 percentile to 78 percentile. So what should we do in what should he do in the last 4 weeks to get closer to 90, 95 percentile in CAT?
So once again, I mean, it's good that students solve a lot of test papers, but if those test papers are not analyzed well, then all that effort is a waste of time, in my opinion. So whatever time you're spending in solving test papers, I think equal time needs to be spent also in terms of analyzing the papers. So when you were scoring an 80, 87 percentile, what was working for you? While you're not able to score that much, what is not working for you? So again, in analysis also, I have seen a lot of students analyze only where they are going wrong, or only those questions which are not correct. You also need to analyze questions that are correct. So in my opinion, if you want to do well in an exam like the CAT, I would categorize the steps in three parts. And those three parts coincidentally lead up to a word called IIM. And in IIM, the first I stands for identify the right question. The second I stands for ideal technique to be used to solve a question. And the third alphabet M stands for minimize your mistakes. If these three are in place, you will definitely do well in the CAT. Identify the right question, because your section is always going to be a mix of easy questions, moderately difficult questions, and difficult questions. You should be able to identify the difficult questions and keep them aside, and then solve the easy and the moderately difficult questions. That's the biggest challenge, in my opinion, to be able to identify the right questions to solve. Very often, when we say that we are unable to solve too many questions, the issue that we face is we are not able to identify the right questions to solve. If we are able to identify well, we will always be able to solve enough number of questions. If I move to the second I, which is ideal technique, I have been asked very often, what is an ideal technique? In my opinion, there is a one single line definition of ideal technique, that technique which takes the least amount of time. If that is a traditional technique that we've learned in school, so be it. If that is just browsing through the options and eliminating the options, so be it. It doesn't matter. Eventually, whichever technique helps you solve the question in the least amount of time is the best technique, and that technique should be mastered. And this is where I come down to that point that even those questions that you got correct in a test should be analyzed, because if you have not used the ideal technique, then you need to learn that ideal technique. So very often what happens is we are so comfortable with our tried and tested technique that we've learned in school. We don't want to learn new techniques, or we don't want to experiment with these other shortcuts. It doesn't help. So you should try and look at multiple ways of solving a question, and that should become part of your preparation. And identify the best technique that you can use to solve a question so as to save time, hence be able to attempt more questions. The third
Yes.
alphabet, M, I mentioned this earlier also. Minimizing mistakes is crucial. In any case, you will not be able to attempt all the questions. That has been my experience. So whatever you are able to attempt, please get it right. Otherwise, first of all, you spend time on attempting a question, and then if you get it wrong, all that time is a waste of time. So if these three steps can be mastered, it will really help you. So for the student who mentioned that I am unable to score what I was scoring earlier, try and analyze where are you going wrong. Try and analyze whether your accuracy is in place or your accuracy is poor. So there's no one standard answer to a question of this kind that, you do this and this will help you. You need to understand what's going wrong for you, because all of these things actually should be customized for each student. It's not a one size fits all kind of a strategy that will ever work. This person really needs to understand what worked well when he scored an 87 percentile, what's not going well right now, and attack that issue. Identify the real issue and go after that. That's most important.
Okay, sir. So, sir, another question is by Kunal Gupta. So, he had scored a 99.69 percentile in 2019, but he could not make it to any of the top B schools because of his profile. So, he's targeting a 99 plus and 99.9 plus this time. So, what can he do extra in this last 30 days apart from taking mocks so that he can make it cross the 99.9 mark?
No, so okay. Again, as I mentioned, taking mocks is just one way or one part of the preparation, really. Analyzing the mocks, I mean, I'm sure Kunal would be taking exams even now in terms of mock tests. So looking at where he stands in these mock tests, whether he is able to reach that 99.9 percentile as of today or not. If not, where is he falling short? Which section is he falling short in? Is he able to clear all the cutoffs? I'm assuming with a 99.69, he would have cleared all the sectional cutoffs. But we need to identify section by section. We need to identify, also Kunal needs to identify which is his strength area, because one extra question in that strength area may really mean a lot in terms of pushing that overall percentile to a 99.9 and maybe more than that also. So analyzing whatever he's doing. So if he's solving a test, equal amount of time or maybe even more in terms of analyzing that test, because from a 99.69 to a 99.9, what is extremely crucial is identifying the right thing to be done in terms of getting that one or maybe two extra questions to be able to push that score up. So For a person like Kunal, in fact, it's even more critical to analyze the test performance rather than chase solving more and more tests. Because, I mean, if you have not really identified that area to be attacked, and if you keep solving more and more papers, you'll keep ending up with the same kind of score, and then it's not really taking you ahead at all. So, more amount of time in terms of analysis. Talk to his teachers who may be able to help him. What is that one area where, or what is that one thing that he needs to do to get that marginal improvement? And I'm sure it's possible. It's not that difficult.
Yes, sir. Sir, one thing is that, as you mentioned, right? As you mentioned, so one needs to, for example, Kunal needs to identify where he is going wrong and how he can improve. And another thing that you mentioned is the IIM technique that you say that you minimize your mistakes. So, sir, these things are always that all these tips are things that an aspirant would require in the last few days. So, and for that also, sir, you have taken a one-on-one mentorship session with one of our students. So, how was your experience with one-on-one mentoring the student? Because we have been mentoring students in a classroom setup for almost 2 decades now. So, how has been the transition, over Zoom call in a one-on-one mentorship session where he had questions and you who guided him on how he can prepare in a much better manner for CAT?
So, doing it over a Zoom call, I mean, as they say, this is the new normal. So,
Yeah.
I guess everyone needs to get used to the new normal. So, while I agree that the student was not sitting across physically in front of me, but I think a Zoom call is as good as sitting across the table and having a chat. But mentoring is something that is a passion for me. I really love it and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, it was a fantastic experience. Over the years, there's one thing that I have realized and which I also experienced with the student with whom I had the mentorship session. There are a lot of things that we hear from people, and people love giving advice that you should do this, you should do that, and this is what works, this is what doesn't work, and stuff like that. We never ever question anything. We never ever try to analyze what is that person saying. Does it make sense? Why is he or she saying it? Does it apply to me? We never ever think of all these things. And hence, in fact, even when I am doing my mentorship, rather than giving answers or solutions to problems, I kind of believe in asking more questions or helping the person think through where he or she is so as to arrive at a solution which works for him or her. I mentioned this earlier. I am a strong believer in the fact that, one single solution or one strategy or one point does not necessarily apply to all. It needs to be customized. And when it has to be customized, in fact, when a person comes to me saying, this is a problem, what should I do? I never ever give the answer, this is what you should do. I mean, there are so many possible ways of getting out of that situation or that problem. I will always want to ask questions and help the person think through that situation and try and arrive at or think of multiple possible ways of getting out of that situation, and for that person to identify what for that person is the best way of answering or getting out of that situation.
Okay. So, guys, as I said, so Parag sir is also one of the mentors for our council one-on-one training program. So he has taken mentorship sessions to help CAT aspirants like yourself on how you can, make a better strategy, how you can, because we have received questions from you. I have been checking the questions all morning. So where you have mentioned that you're falling short of the 99 percentile mark or the 90 percentile mark because you're not being able to select the correct questions, or you're wasting too much time on a difficult question instead of solving 2-3 easy questions. So all these is and all these things need a proper one-to-one guidance. It cannot be a cookie cutter approach that can help you. So if you're interested, if you want to be mentored by someone who has been mentoring over 10,000 students in the last 20 years, I strongly recommend you to take a look at the council program. So, and we have put up the link on the chat window. So please take a look at that. So, sir, coming to the next set of questions. So, this is something that we have received in the chat also and also in the Google form. So, Fahim, Fatima, and almost 26 people others have asked that while it was a 3 hour long exam pattern in the mock test, they were scoring really good. But right now, because Indore has not yet released the pattern, so there's a lot of confusion, and different mock providers are using different permutations and combinations with respect to the number of questions in a section, level of difficulty, which is why their attempts are going lower than before, and they're not being able to score as much as they were being able to score before. So in such a situation, they are definitely they're confused. That is one, and we have still don't have any idea about the pattern that Indore is going to release in the coming days. So, sir, do you have any insight on this? How can someone not be affected by the pattern change? And because this is something that's not in their hands, so how can someone not pay too much heed into it and then continue with his or her preparation?
So, I'm going to start off by those words that you just mentioned. This is not in their hands.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that if something is beyond your control, stop worrying about it. Because half the issues come up because we worry too much about things which are beyond our control. Stop worrying about all these things which are beyond your control and start working on things in your control. So you mentioned that the attempts have gone down. Now, it's obvious that if a paper which was 3 hours has now gone down to 2 hours, your attempts are bound to go down. It's unfortunate that the paper pattern has not been announced, but again, what applies to you applies to all. So if the time has gone down from 3 hours to 2 hours, it has gone down for all. If the paper pattern has not been announced, it's not been announced for all. The most important thing, and this has been the key to doing well in the CAT over the years, right from when it was a paper pencil test to when it became an online test, and I don't know how many times the pattern has been changed. How can you be flexible to adapt to that particular day's pattern? To be very honest, if they announce the pattern, you're lucky. Because I have also seen times where nothing was announced. In fact, I have taken the CAT at a time where we used to not even get our scorecards. Today, scorecards are available.
Yes.
So when I took the CAT, either you got a call letter or you got nothing. And if you got nothing, it meant that, okay, you've not done well and hence you're not eligible for a call. Today, the scorecards are available. Today, you know what you've done in each section and so on. So we've really moved a long way from a time where there was complete uncertainty to at least whatever level of certainty there exists today. If they announce the pattern, good. If they don't announce the pattern, good. It's beyond your control. Stop worrying about it. The key is, can you keep your cool on the last day, be flexible and adapt to that particular pattern. If they don't announce it, it's going to be a surprise for all. The key is going to be the person who manages to adapt to that pattern on that day within that uncertain situation is going to do well. So if you have done your basic preparation well, if the 3 points that I mentioned, identifying the question, ideal technique to be used, and minimizing your mistakes, if all of that is in place, it really doesn't matter. Your absolute score may go down, but how does that matter? If the test is difficult, it's difficult for all. The percentiles will be according to that day's difficulty. If the paper is easy, it will be easy for all. More people will be able to attempt more number of questions, and hence the scores and the percentiles will be graded according to that. So stop worrying about the fact that the pattern has not been announced. See what comes up, see what best you can do within that pattern, see how many maximum questions you can attempt with the best possible accuracy. And if you are able to do that, then your percentile should be good. Even today, I agree that different institutes would be trying out different permutations, combinations. Guys, let's accept it. What choice do they have? Even they don't know the pattern. So they are just exposing you to all different possibilities. So get used to all these different possibilities and try and don't focus on the absolute score, which I'm sure you are aware of by now. See whatever percentile you're getting with those absolute scores and see what is the gap and what do you need to do. And within that, how best you can improve your percentile. if you can stop worrying about the fact that you don't know the paper pattern and start focusing on how best to adapt to that particular day's paper pattern, that's all that you need to do. And I'm sure you will do well if you can be flexible and adapt to that day.
So this is a question by Ishan. So Ishan says that he has completed the entire syllabus end to end, but he's still not being able to attempt questions in the mock tests. So for someone like Ishan, so this is someone has also posted this in the chat as well, live chat. So for people like them who have despite completing the entire syllabus, so they're not being able to score in the mock tests or even attempt many questions. So what should be the strategy in the last few days so that they can up the game in the actual CAT exam on 29 November?
No, so Ishan, I'm actually very happy that you have completed the entire syllabus end to end, because that is the foundation, that is the stepping stone to your, whatever else you can do in terms of getting the score. Now, when you say that you are not able to attempt questions, now there could be multiple reasons for that. There are some students who are able to solve questions when these questions come up topic by topic. So, for example, I do a particular topic, I solve the questions of that topic, I am able to do well. But when the entire curriculum comes jumbled up, all the topics together, if you get a category, then I mean you need to understand that on the last day all the topics are going to come up jumbled only, and practice more of section tests so as to get used to all these topics and questions coming up jumbled up, and still be able to solve as many as possible. If that is not a problem for you, then check if you really have an issue in identifying the questions. So I am obviously assuming that the problem that you're facing is not that you are unable to solve any question. Maybe what you mean by your question is you are unable to solve enough number of questions to your liking. Okay. What I would suggest you need to do is whichever test you have solved, if you were to get 100% accuracy, identify what is the number of questions that you needed to solve to clear the cutoff at least. That should be your first step. So for example, if you need to solve 10 questions, I'm taking a random number. Have you managed to solve 10 questions, or you haven't managed to solve 10 questions? If you have managed to solve 10 questions and you've not cleared the cutoff because your accuracy is not in place, that's what you need to focus on first. If you haven't managed to solve 10 questions, understand how many questions is the gap to be able to reach that level of 10 questions, and see whether the issue was that you attempted the wrong questions, which is why you ran out of time, or you did not use the right technique. Another issue that I have seen over the years is you will have a lot of half attempts, which means you started off a question and then you left it midway because you could not reach the right answer. So try and analyze all those half attempts, those three steps as I mentioned, I, and M. Did you identify the right question? Did you use the right technique? And did you minimize your mistakes? If these three are in place, everything will fall in place and you will always be able to clear the cutoff. So Ishan really needs to understand which of these issues is really the issue for him, and then attack that particular issue. And I'm sure Ishan would have solved multiple tests, so he needs to analyze all his tests and look at all these 3 points that I mentioned and see if a pattern emerges. Very often a pattern emerges, and then you exactly know what you need to chase and what you need to do to get out of this issue.
Okay, sir. So, sir, Shubham Singh has a question. So, Shubham Singh is saying that in his mocks, he often blanks out when he is solving quant questions, and where there is no timer, so when there is no time restriction, he can easily solve those questions. So, and he finds himself reading the same question multiple times without solving anything. So, how can we deal with this? So, yes, sir.
Yeah. So again, out of my past experience, I can tell you that a person who just has a very has set a vague goal, saying I want to attempt maximum number of questions. Okay. And there is no particular definition to or a value to maximum. So whatever you are able to solve, you feel it is not enough and I should have done more. Now, this is what puts a lot of pressure on you. and which is very often the cause of blanking out when you are appearing for a particular test. Out of the past tests, I mean, you should be able to get an estimate as to how many questions would have been enough to at least clear the cutoff. I am assuming for Shubham, when he mentions that he blanks out in the quant section, quant is not the strength area. This is a pure assumption that I'm making. So if quant is not your strength area, it is even more critical to analyze all your past tests and understand what would have been a good number of attempts to at least clear the cutoff with a high accuracy rate. Then Shubham needs to understand whether he has been able to attempt those many questions or not. If all of that is in place, then time pressure is not really the issue because Shubham is able to solve those many questions. Identify the right questions. You should always be able to clear the cutoff. So don't have a very vague idea that, okay, I need to just keep solving more and more. Shubham, please understand, if the section is difficult, it's difficult for all. If the section is easy, it is easy for all. If it is difficult, majority of the people will not be able to attempt too many questions. If the section is easy, majority of the people will be able to attempt a lot of questions. So you need to get a sense for yourself looking at your past papers, whether you have been able to attempt enough number of questions, which would have helped you clear the cutoff, provided your accuracy rate was high. Once again, you need to analyze what is the real issue. Is not enough attempts the real issue, or not good enough accuracy the real issue? Identify that issue and then go out after that. And please do not have this mindset or a dream that you will be able to attempt all questions. It may not be possible to do so. In fact, if you read a question and if you don't know what to do about it, I've been asked this question very often. I read a question and I just don't know what to do. I think that's the best question to have, because then you're not going to waste your time on this question at all. Just leave it and move ahead. The problem is not the questions where you are unable to start. The problem is those questions where you are able to start and then you get stuck midway. So if you come across questions which you just don't know how to start, that's the best question to have. Leave it, focus on the other questions. If you are able to do that, you will have enough time for the remaining questions, and then you should be able to solve enough within that to be able to clear the cutoff. Focus on accuracy.
Sir, for the last question, you had said that there are people who make a lot of half-attempted questions. So Tapas Kumar Patra, he is saying that he keeps on making a lot of half-attempt questions. So how can he reduce it? Is there any way to reduce that?
Correct. So which is where I come back to the IIM that I mentioned, and the first I was identify. So it's very critical to, when you start attempting a question. So there are three categories that I would like to divide the question in, or maybe more than that also. The first category, let me call as a difficult question. I read the question, I just don't know what to do. I'm very happy with such questions. Please leave them. Okay. There are times when we don't know what to do, yet we try something saying, you know, if I start with something, hopefully I'll be able to reach somewhere. Don't fall in this trap. Just leave it. Okay. Now, I mentioned the word don't fall in this trap. Now, the trap out here is that everyone has some favorite topics, which, you know, you feel that, okay, if a question is from this topic, I will be able to attempt it, or I would like to attempt it. I call this as an ego issue. Don't get into these ego issues. Don't judge the question based on the topic. Judge the question based on the merit of the question. If the question is from your favorite topic, but if it is difficult and you just don't know how to start, don't feel bad about it. Just leave it and move on. Let's look at the reverse situation. The question is from a topic that I hate, but it is one of the easiest questions. But just because I hate that topic, I don't even start off, or I feel that I do it. That's the reverse situation. That's the problem of the other extreme end. So look at a question and ask yourself, do I know exactly what is to be done to attempt the question from the first step to the last step? If yes, can I solve this quickly or not? If yes, I should just solve the question, get done with it, move ahead. I go back to the second question. I may take time, but I know exactly what is to be done from step one to the last step. You may still want to attempt it. It may take you a little time. Attempt it, take the time, get done with it, focus on accuracy, and then move on. Okay? Come back to the first question. Do I know exactly what I need to do from the first step to the last step? Maybe not till the last step, but I have a fair idea of what I need to do to be able to attempt that question. I would mark such a question, keep it aside, and then come back to it. Okay, for my second stage. Now, I have also handled a lot of students who say that, I never have a second stage only. My entire time limit gets utilized in the first stage only. Well, if you are in that category, then all the questions that you know what to do and can be done fast, finish it off. All the questions that you know what to do may take time, finish it off, and then come back to these questions where maybe I know what to do, at least I can reach some level, and then I will figure out what is to be done. That is the third category of questions. And the questions which I really don't even understand or don't know how to start, please do not feel bad about these questions. These are the questions which will help you solve the ones that should be solved. Leave them, mark a cross, don't ever come back to these questions. I have had a belief over the years, if you want to do well in the CAT, you should know the questions that you need to leave and leave them. It's about knowing which ones to leave and not which ones to solve. If you can identify the questions which should be left alone, automatically by default, you will be left with those questions which you can solve or you need to solve, then solve them.
Yes. So there is another question. So they're asking, Saurav is asking, so how to ace CAT, how to ace this 120 minutes without any pressure or anxiety? So sir, I remember one of your students,
Without
Alpesh,
any
so
pressure or
pressure,
anxiety.
anxiety. So I
Okay.
remember one of your students, Alpesh, who was listening to get to top cat, everyone said that he was going to top cat, but because of one mistake that he made in the exam, his percentile dropped to 67 percentile from,
Yes.
and he was scoring straight 99 percentile and above 99. So he also scored all India rank 1 2 3 a lot of times in the mocks. So
Yeah.
there are many cases where students, fail to live up to their potential on the D-Day because of stress, anxiety. So how can someone not be affected by that? Because at the end, this is an exam taken by over 2 lakh people. There is stress, there is pressure. So how can someone not be affected by it and just solely concentrate on their preparation?
So Devan, the first thing is that there is no such concept as no pressure or no anxiety.
Yeah.
First, accept that fact. Whatever you do in life, which is important for you, there will always be pressure, there will always be anxiety. And having a little bit of pressure and a little bit of anxiety is actually good because it builds that seriousness level in you. You will be very serious and you will attempt it with your full concentration and full enthusiasm. The problem is when you allow that pressure and anxiety to get to you, which means you take so much pressure that you just buckle down under that pressure and you can't handle it. So it's about first realizing and accepting the fact that yes, there will be pressure, yes, there will be anxiety, and it's good to have that pressure and anxiety because it builds that much more seriousness in your attempt. Having said that, why is there pressure? I mean, there is pressure because of performance, because I call this as performance pressure. I call this as time pressure. So how do you deal with performance pressure? When you set proper goals, when you work smart, and when you realize that there is limited time. So in a previous question, you mentioned that there is a student who said, when I don't have any time pressure, I'm able to solve. But when there is time pressure, then I can't solve. It's exactly that same point. It's the time pressure. So when you have set a proper goal that these many questions within this time limit with a good accuracy rate should be good enough. It's about building your confidence level through these mocks. It's about walking into the test saying that the maximum that I can do is put in my best effort. If my best effort is not enough on that day, I really can't do more than that. So have that confidence that if I put in my best possible effort, I will be able to do well, I will be able to get a good score and hence get a call. Well, if in spite of my best effort, I am unable to get a good enough score, so be it. I mean, the one thing that I have always told students, MBA is not only about the CAT, there are other exams also.
Yes.
And CAT is not only about the IIMs, there are other institutes also.
Yes.
We go crazy about the CAT and crazy about the IIMs, and in the bargain, miss out on other institutes and other exams, which may be good enough and which
Yes.
may be equally good to get, myself a good enough career and do well in life. Everyone doesn't have to get into an IIM and everyone doesn't have to only do it through the CAT. There are multiple exams, multiple institutes. So be very clear about this fact that what is the meaning of doing well? While I know that they are appearing for mocks and they will be those cutoffs that are given by the institutes and so on and so forth, and these cutoffs will be aimed at the IIMs. There's no problem because that's a benchmark that is being set. If you are able to clear the benchmark, you are already there. Good for you. If you are unable to clear the benchmark consistently, then you also need to check whether the goal that you've set for yourself is the right goal or not. Otherwise, you will be chasing some goal which you are unable to achieve and you'll kill yourself with that pressure. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. So understand the reality that pressure is there for each and every student. Be it performance pressure or time pressure is there for every student. How do you manage that pressure? Please believe in your own ability and accept the fact that the maximum that you can do is put in your best effort. On the last day, when you walk out of the CAT, you should not be left with the feeling, if only I had also done this. Whatever is that, if only I had also done this, should be done now. On the last day, you should walk out saying, I have put in my best effort, I have done my best. If my best is not enough, either I look at some other exam or I look at the CAT again. There's no problem.
Yes.
Put in your best effort, and that is what will take you through. Focus on things in your control and not in things which are not on things which are not in your control.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, as you mentioned that CAT is not the end of the game. So there are exams like ZAT, IIFT, MACT, MICAT, NMAT, all these exams. So, guys, all these exams, while the crux of the matter, all these QA, the topics of QA and reading comprehension and data interpretation, these remain the same. But every exam needs fine-tuning a different strategy and approach. For example, ZAT has a very unique section called the decision-making section. So in case you need to fine-tune your strategy for all the other management entrance exams apart from CAT, so do check out the council program with Parag sir. So he is there to help you out with forming the best strategy so that you can make it to your dream B school. As sir said, IIMs are not the end. So there are other institutes like XLRI, MBA, SPJIMR, all other JBIMS, all other institutes. So Parag sir is here to help you out. So I have put up the link in the chat window. Do check out the council program. So you can take sessions with sir and get one-on-one counseling and mentorship on how you can make the best of the last few days for your exam. Sir, so one of the questions that a lot of people have posted over here is, so Shubham Bhatt, then others and a lot of others have posted is that they are not being able to score. They have left a lot of topics in quantitative aptitude. So they have left permutation combination. Someone has left higher algebra. So how will it affect their CAT preparation and how to revise those topics? So sir, before you go, so with your permission, sir, I just like to say something. So guys, we have 21 really high quality videos that Parag sir had done with us a few years back. So he has as detailed out the concepts from of all the topics under QA, starting from arithmetic to algebra, higher algebra. So I really, yeah, we have put up the link in the chat window. Do check out that other Shubham, but it is really going to help you if you have not started your preparation even now for concepts like permutation combination. Do check out the link, so you'll find 21 high quality videos. So, sir, anything else that you would like to tell them how to, the last two,
So
3 weeks, how they can, yeah.
So one very critical thing is that, and this is a very common question I've been asked over the last 20 years, can I leave XYZ topic? Yeah, and can I still do well in the CAT? You may be able to. I'm not going to say that if you leave out a particular topic, you won't be able to do in the CAT. I mean, that's the uncertain nature of the exam. So nobody can predict whether you'll be able to do well or not. But remember what I said, identify the right question. Now, what is a right question? A right question is the one that is a very simple, straightforward question, can be solved in limited time, and there is a very good chance of getting it right. Now, let's assume the easy category question, and I'm sure all students who've been appearing for mock papers have got exposed to this terminology called as easy or simple, moderate, hard or tough, and so on and so forth. The topic that you've left out, as you mentioned, Shubham spoke about permutations combinations.
Yes.
If Shubham has left out permutations combinations, and if one of the easy questions in that paper is from permutations combination. Now, because Shubham has left it out, there is no way he will be able to attempt this question. In fact, he will not even read the question to know whether it is an easy question or not. Now, that's where a problem comes in. So my suggestion to students and especially to Shubham, do not leave out any topic completely. Go through every topic so that if at least a very simple question is asked from a topic, you should be able to identify that question and you should be able to solve it. If permutations combinations is not your comfort zone, and if a difficult question is asked, you will anyways not be able to solve that question. So fair enough, leave it. But if an easy question is asked from permutation combination, you should at least have prepared well enough for the basics that if it's a easy question, you will be able to attempt that question and get it right. Now, this is where your identification of the question can be hampered if you have left out topics. Because you may not be able to identify an easy question just because you've left out a topic or because you don't like a particular topic. So you just leave out that question looking at the topic name rather than the question type. So one standard suggestion to all such students, do not leave out any topic completely. At least do every topic at the base level so as to be able to identify easy questions and solve them. Who knows that one extra question may help you clear the cutoff. So don't leave out any topic.
Yes, sir. So, sir, we have a very interesting question from Arushi. So, she's saying that in the last 7 months, she and all the cat takers this time, none of them have taken any proctored mock test. So, they didn't go to any center to take the mock. So, they don't have the actual feeling of going to a center and taking the test. They have been all taking mock tests from their home itself. So, how can someone be mentally prepared for that on the day of the cat exam? So, what should be the psychology while taking the actual cat exam? So right now, because there's obviously a difference between taking mock test from home and from a center. So how can someone, what's the psychology of someone? How can someone be focused on that?
The first thing that I would say is stop making it a big issue. Yes, you have not been able to go to a test center and appear for what is called as a proctored exam. It really doesn't matter. I mean, it's almost like saying that a person who's been working has been going to office every day and working. So that's like a proctored environment. Now in the work from home scenario, there are just too many distractions available at home and hence I'm unable to work because I'm working from home. It really doesn't work that way. When you don't have an option, you don't have an option. So don't try to, say that, oh, if I had that enough practice of a proctored environment, I would have, it doesn't work. Okay. It's an option that does not exist. It does not exist. is the new normal. The buzzword nowadays is the new normal. This is the new normal. I mean, I remember the time before CAT went online when it used to be a paper pencil exam. Well, there used to be a center where thousands of students would be there at that center at one point of time, and within a classroom jam packed with students, one on every bench or maybe two on every bench, and so on and so forth. Well, that changed, right? When CAT became online and it was to be taken on a computer, there was a limitation in terms of the resources available. So the number of students in a lab at one point of time went down. So the way those students adapted and said that, okay, it's not going to be 100 or 200 in a classroom and it's only going to be 30 in a lab. Well, today, unfortunately, because of the current situation, you've not even got that experience of maybe going to a lab where a certain number of students come together and appear for a proctored exam. So what beyond your control, right? Remember what I said? Stop worrying about things which are beyond your control. Within that, what is the best that you can do? You can't do more than that. Stop worrying. So these are problems that we allow to get to us. We create these stories in our mind that, oh, I have not taken an exam in a proctored environment. Beyond your control, you can't help it. Stop worrying about it. In any case, on the last day, when you go to a test center, it's you and the computer in front of you, right? Practice that and do the best that you can within this given situation. Resources may not always be the best that you want or the maximum that you would like to have. Try and learn how to make the most of the limited resources or the limited experience that you're getting and try to do the best. You can't do more than your best. Okay, so try and do your best. Take what you get when you do your best and see how best to manage with that result and what can you do with that. Don't try to worry about what does not exist. It's not going to take you anywhere. Try and manage within the available conditions and resources. That's all that I can say. Don't make a big deal out of it.
So, sir, Kandar Dubey is asking. He's saying that he can solve 7 to 8 questions, but it takes him 5 6 minutes per question because he thinks of a strategy after reading the question, and in that process he wastes a lot of time. So, what should he do to reduce that time to attempt a single question? So, from 5 to 6 minutes to maybe the ideal 2 minutes per question.
So this is what ideally should have been done as part of the preparation over the many months, wherein you, as I mentioned, ideal technique. Is he really using the ideal technique or the shortcuts or the faster ways of solving the questions, which will help him reduce the time? So if he's not been using the ideal technique, maybe even now what he can do is try and look at what are these shortcuts. Okay, first of all, he's able to solve 7 or 8 questions. If he gets all the 7 or 8 questions correct, is this good enough to help him clear the cutoff? If it is good enough to help him clear the cutoff, then the first thing is to ensure that he gets all of them correct. If he's spending 5 to 6 minutes per question, then he can't even afford to get it wrong. So if he can operate at 100% accuracy, and if these 7 8 questions with 100% accuracy are able to help him clear the cutoff, then first hurdle is cleared. If it is not able to, helping him to clear the cutoff because he's not getting all of them correct, then focus on what he needs to do to get them correct. Because that's the first thing. Between higher attempts and higher accuracy, I would go for higher accuracy always, because you've already put in that effort. So try and make the most of the time spent and get it right. Now, if he's in a situation where he is getting a good accuracy rate, but it's the attempts which are not helping him clear the cutoff, then see where he can save time by using a better technique to attempt the question, and hence save time so as to attempt 1 or 2 more questions. So in the order, I would say, first, check if the number of questions is good enough to clear the cutoff, provided all are correct. If the number of questions is enough, then see where he is going wrong because of accuracy and try and bridge that gap, get all correct so as to clear the cutoff. And if all of that is in place, then see if the technique can be improved or he can save time per question so as to get some extra time for maybe 1 or 2 more attempts. And that's how he'll be able to attempt more questions and hopefully clear the cutoff.
So, sir, again, we have a lot of questions, people asking on how they can improve their VRC sections. There's Shalu Agarwal, Harsha, Om Prakash. So, and another question is that when it comes to reading comprehension, they cannot negate the two options. They can, of the 4 questions given, they can firstly remove the 2 options.
Come down to option. Okay.
Yeah. So how can someone improve their VRC and RC passages?
Okay, so disclaimer, I mean, I've always been a quant LRDI faculty, so I have not really taught VARC, but out of my experience, I'll tell you what I have seen over the years. When we prepare for VARC, okay, there are 2 things that we need to prepare for. If a particular option is the right option, why is that the right option? And if a particular option is not the right option, then why is it not the right option? There are times when we ignore the second part. We chase what is the correct answer and why is it the correct answer. But equally important is what is not the correct answer and why is it not the correct answer. Because see, if you don't get that right, there is a very good chance that if a similar question is asked again, you will again be confused because you've not really tackled that part of why is something not the right answer. So in your preparation, bring in both the parts. What is the correct answer and why is it the correct answer? What is not the correct answer and why is it not the correct answer? Till you get that clarity of why is a particular option not the correct option, you will always be confused. So if you really want to, now get that clarity after coming down to 2 options, which one is not the right option and which one is the right option, you should be able to select the correct option as to why it is and eliminate the wrong option as to why it is not the right option. So if you prepare for both of these things, you should be able to minimize this error of, or be able to select correctly the correct option. So in your practice, in your preparation, put in that effort to understand why is something not the right option. If you do that, you should be able to do well in this.
So just as you said that you are a DILR faculty, you have been a quant and DILR faculty, so questions on DILR have started pouring in. So, so there are students who are saying that then they can never, so I cannot I cannot solve a complete set, but I can only solve 2 or 3 questions in a set in DILR, and I take a lot of time to figure out which set to solve. And DILR strategy that they can use. And Kavish is asking for a DILR strategy.
This is a pure practice aspect. I mean, the more DILR you practice, the more you will be able to read the set and be able to understand. And I'm going to go back to what I said for quant also, or in general what I said. When in a DILR set, you read the set and you don't even know how to start. Okay, don't feel bad about it. Just leave it. I repeat what I said earlier. To do well in the CAD, you should know which questions to leave. And once you understand which questions to leave, you will be left with only those questions which you either know exactly what is to be done or vaguely know what is to be done. And put in all your time and effort on those questions. So if you read a DILR set and you don't even know the start point, okay, just leave it. Don't worry about it. Coming back to the point that you mentioned where you said that a person is able to solve 2 or 3 questions and not able to solve all the questions. Well, it shouldn't matter. What's the problem? What's the harm? If you are able to solve 2 or 3 questions of enough number of sets, it's fine. Don't be so hell bent on solving each and every question because you have solved 2 or 3 questions. It's okay if that question is a difficult question in that set, by all means leave it. See, don't get into these mindsets that if I have started off a set, I should solve all the questions or I have to solve all the questions. There is nothing like should or have to. If you are able to solve 2 or 3 questions within a set, and if you have been able to do that within a decent amount of time, you've done a good job. Move on to the other sets where you can again solve 2 or 3 questions within that set. Well, that's the way of going about it. If that works for you, that works for you, no problem. There is no one rule that works for everyone. There is no one strategy that works for everyone. You have to decide your own strategy. And you have to maximize what you can do with your own strategy. So if your strategy is 2 or 3 questions of each set and multiple such sets, if that is what works for you, go ahead and do that. If your strategy is no, I will solve every question of a particular set that I've started off, and if that works for you, do that. There's no problem. But the most important thing is don't get stuck on any question. If you have spent, so that's another trap actually. The mindset with students is I've already spent so much time, might as well put in a little more. Hopefully, I'll get somewhere. This hopefully gets you nowhere. Okay. If you have put in a certain amount of time and yet you are confused about what is to be done later, leave it, move on. And there are times in DILR, especially, where if you get stuck, you get badly stuck. If you leave it at that time and then you come back and look at it with a fresh mindset, fresh approach, you may just be able to solve it. I've seen so many students who say that during the test I got stuck, but when I came back home and I looked at that set, I could solve it easily. Well, this is because of that pressure in the test. And pressure exists in the test. Don't get into a mindset or don't start thinking of how to avoid that pressure. Pressure will be there. How do you maximize within that pressure is what you need to do.
Sir, Abhiroop has a question. He is requesting for a schedule on how he can on how what he can do and how he can prepare in the last 29 days. So Abhiroop, a schedule cannot be for someone. It has to be customized. It cannot be a generic schedule. So what
Thank
can
you so
work
much,
for you may
Dilru.
not work. So if you want a customized schedule on how you can make the most of the last 30 days, then I'd recommend that you sign up for 3 sessions. Cat training mentorship with Parag sir. So he'll be there to guide you on how you can make the best out of the next 30 days and the schedule that you should follow. So this is not exactly something that can help everyone. So that is something, it depends on your areas of strength and weakness. It's not something that we can take up. So answer the most asked question across the chat window and the Google form is that how many mocks should I take in the last 4 weeks?
Okay. Very simple answer. And I'm going to continue what you just said. There is no one standard number that works for all. In fact, there are a lot of people who say that 1 or 2 days before the D day, you should not appear for any mock. Well, I have also tried saying that to students, and students have proven me wrong, because there are some students who prepare in such a manner that they build it up over the last 15, 20 days, and then they say that no, I need to be in touch even one day prior to my D day, and I need to solve a paper because that is what works for me. Fabulous. If that is what works for you, do that. The one thing that I would definitely say is don't compromise on analysis time just because you want to solve more papers. Whatever time you're spending in solving a test, you should spend an equal amount of time, or at times even more time, in analyzing that test. So again, there is no one standard rule that works for all. If you are a person who can keep solving papers and not get saturated and not reach your peak before the D day and so on and so forth, by all means keep solving papers. If you are a person who will kind of get saturated, and hence on that last day feel so bored that you've kind of peaked before your test day, it is not the right thing to do. So once again, there is no one standard answer that's going to work for all. It needs to be looked at by the person, whether he or she is a person who can keep solving paper after paper after paper, and maybe that's what works for them. Do it, no problem, but don't compromise on analysis. If you have solved a paper, before you solve the next paper, analyze this paper. Otherwise it's like just playing blind. I am only solving paper after paper and not knowing what I did in my last paper, what worked for me, what did not work for me. So I'm just going blind and saying, let me see what happens today. It doesn't help like that.
So Kaustav Satam is asking, can we get an idea like what was Sir's experience when he took his first exam?
When I took my CAT.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So when I took my CAT, I learned one lesson in life. And that lesson in life is something that I mentioned today. You need to manage that pressure and you need to be flexible to adapt to any and every situation. When I was going through my mock papers, I was doing very, very well in my mock papers and I was expected to do very well in my CAT. And at my time, CAT was a paper pencil exam and my center was a school. And at that time, CAT used to be held on one particular day at one particular time for all students across the country. And it used to be a Sunday. And when I went for my exam, it was also coincidentally the venue for a marriage. And in that marriage, they were playing music and it was Shehnai playing. And I got so lost in the Shehnai that was playing that I could not focus on my paper. And I completely messed it up. And I messed it up so badly that, as I mentioned, at that time we used to not get scorecards. So I did not get any call letter, and that told me what happened in my CAT. But my experience of the CAT and my preparation of the CAT helped me so much in my CET that I got a top 10 rank in the CET, and due to which I got into JBIMS and I completed my MBA from JBIMS. So, two things. One is be prepared for any kind of eventuality and adapt to that particular situation. Be flexible. Flexibility is the key to do well on that last day. You may have prepared for a certain paper pattern, and if on that last day you find the pattern has changed, and if you get worked up because of that, you've lost the battle. So be flexible and adapt to whatever comes up on that last day, point number one. And point number two, your CAT preparation is automatically going to help you in all your other exams. And hence, even if you don't do well in the CAT, doesn't mean you're not going to do well in the other exams. Your other exams may just become very easy because of the effort that you put in for the CAT. So don't lose hope. Be flexible, adapt, and don't lose hope. That's going to really help you.
Yes, sir. There are a few questions about the what should the score required to score 95 percentile. So we don't even know the number of questions that is there. So that's not possible for us to comment, for sir to comment at this moment.
But can I make one comment? Can I
Yeah.
make one comment?
Yes. Yeah.
If you stop worrying about how many questions you need to attempt, okay, if you stop worrying about that, then you may be able to do well. You mentioned an example of Alpesh. I had another student who coincidentally was also a faculty at my class while he was a student. He was so brilliant in math that he was also teaching math. Okay, and in his exam, I mean, at that time we used to have 50 minutes per section and so on and so forth. At the end of 40 minutes, he realized that, he had solved only 7 questions. Okay, and he suddenly panicked and he realized that, okay, this is not going to be enough. So in the next 10 minutes, he solved 5 more questions. Okay, when he walked out, he realized that the first 7 questions that he had solved were all correct. The next 5 questions that he had solved were all wrong. And the marking scheme was +4 for a correct and -1 for an incorrect. So when he evaluated his score, +28 for the 7 correct, -5 for the 5 incorrect, his net score came down to 23. And in that year, the cutoff for the quant section was 25. If he had not panicked, his 28 would have been good enough for him to get a call from the top IIMs. Because he panicked, eventually he did manage to do his MBA from one of the IIMs, but this panic never helps. So even if you walk in for an exam saying that, okay, I need so many attempts, as I mentioned, if that year's paper is a difficult paper, your number of attempts may come down for everyone, and hence a lower number of attempts may help you get through. So while it is good to walk in with a certain benchmark for the number of questions, be flexible to adapt to that particular year's difficulty level. And who knows, because the paper is difficult, a lower number of attempts may also take you through. Focus on the accuracy and do your best. You can't do more than that. Just remember that. That's all.
So, sir, there's another question from Kriti. So she's saying that she has been scoring above 99 percentile in some of the mock tests, but lately she has been scoring in the 70s and at times 80s. So what can she do in the last 4 weeks?
No, so first she needs to analyze what worked well for her when she scored the 99 percentile, and simultaneously what went wrong when she got a 70 or an 80 percentile. Till you analyze that, I really cannot tell you what to do in the last 29 days. I mean, what to do in the last 29 days is going to be an outcome of what really worked for you and what did not work for you. Those are the two critical things that you need to analyze. And then if I still have to give you an answer, continue doing more of what worked for you and avoid doing whatever did not work for you. That's the only way ahead. But if you have to get a more specific answer, then we need to get into details of the analysis. Only then can anyone really tell you what to do in the last 29 days. One point that I can definitely mention is if you have scored a 99 percentile, it tells you that you have the potential to do well. So that's a good start. You should take that confidence that if you've got a 99 percentile, then you have the potential to do well. Now, how can you keep repeating that is what you need to figure
out. So, sir, we'll take 2 or 3 more questions. So, okay. Yes, sir. So there's someone who is, what's her name? So yeah, Sriti is asking that she is very good when it comes to DILR and quantitative aptitude, but not in VRC, because of which her percentile never crosses 95. So at this rate, she thinks that she'll never be able to cross more than 95 on the day of CAT. So what can she do to improve her percentile in VRC? And also she needs some motivation because she's saying that she has given up all hope because she's not being able to score well in VRC.
Okay, so the first part, which is what to do in VARC. Within VARC also there are question types which can be categorized as high accuracy types and low accuracy types. Okay, now the problem with VARC is when we are preparing for VARC, it's not like quant. In quant, you can very easily identify that, okay, this question I cannot solve because I don't know what to do. And hence there is some preparation that you put in towards it. In VARC, there is nothing like that. I mean, when you're preparing or when you're solving a paper, you get this feeling that, okay, I can attempt every question. It's only when you get the final answer sheet and your score do you realize that, yes, I attempted a lot of questions, but I got a whole lot of them wrong, which is why my score went down. So she needs to identify where is she going down. If it is in accuracy and if she can analyze 4 or 5 tests and figure out if there is a particular question type or a pattern that emerges that in a particular question type she is doing badly and hence her score is going down, then that will tell her exactly what to do. Maybe prepare in that area or Stop attempting too many questions in that area, which will then avoid those negatives and hence automatically improve your score. Well, there are two ways of improving score. One is by attempting more and getting more right, or attempting less and getting lesser wrong, which also can help you improve your net score. So she needs to analyze which of the two is the issue. If a pattern emerges that there is a particular question type that she is getting wrong regularly, then she needs to practice more in that question type, and hence maybe she'll be able to improve her accuracy, attempt more but still improve her accuracy and hence improve her score overall. As far as motivation is concerned, well, there are times when we lose hope because we don't know what's the way ahead. If you can figure out through your analysis what's the way ahead, whether it is improving accuracy or improving your preparation or putting in more effort in a particular question type or a particular area within VARC, that will at least tell you what is to be done. So very often we give up hope because we don't know what's the way ahead or what to do ahead. So if you can analyze and at least get clarity on what's the way ahead, then you should be able to, put in your effort in that preparation, and that will help you improve your score. If that also doesn't help, well, you have a person sitting in front of you who messed up the CAT, who could not make it to the IIM, who went to a JBIMS and still managed a good enough MBA institute and a good enough career. So don't worry. As I said, MBA is not all about the IIMs, and CAT is also not all about the IIMs. There are MBA is not all about the CAT, right? So there are several exams. If CAT doesn't work for you, I'm sure some other exam will. If you are at the 95 percentile, then you are already at a good score, which means you can do well as far as maybe, if not CAT, some other exam. So don't give up on MBA because you are not doing well in the CAT. Maybe some other exam is meant for you and you'll do well in some other exam and hence some other institute. But don't give up hope on the CAT. Try and figure out what is the issue that you need to address and focus all your effort on addressing that issue.
So there is few comments. So Rishi, Somani, Rupesh. So your questions have already been answered by sir. So I would suggest that once the live gets over, please watch the video once again. So your questions have already been answered by sir. So sir, there are 2-3 questions regarding CAT 2021. So I know this live is not for CAT 2021. So one of the thing is, how can they start preparing for CAT 2021? So this is 3-4 questions are there on how can they start their preparation for CAT 2021. So yes, sir. So
yeah. So the good part is that if you're thinking of CAT 2021, you've started early, which is always good. So there are pros and cons. I mean, you've started early, so you have enough time to complete the preparation. The flip side is you've started early, but how do you kind of manage your motivation levels or your seriousness for the next 1 year? So there is a positive as well as a negative. I would like to focus on the positive. You've started early, you've given yourself enough time. So the way you should start is for every area, whether it is quant, VA, LRDI, whatever be that area, take up each and every chapter, go through the basic concepts, ensure that you know the basic concepts or the rules or the properties or the formulae that you need to know, and then practice that area. Okay. The one thing that I definitely want to mention, because that's something that I've seen over the years, which has kind of led to the downfall of students. We have this mindset that, oh, we have 1 year to go and there's a lot of time. It doesn't work like that. And we start creating backlog. So if there are, let's say, X number of chapters in quant, go through every chapter one by one. Don't create a backlog. If you have already joined an institute for preparation, you will have a certain session that takes you through that particular topic. Now, that's not the end of the topic. That topic will also have a lot of questions which you need to practice on your own. Okay. So something that is taught in class will also have some practice questions which you need to practice at home. So also go through all of those questions. Don't pile up a backlog. Go through it topic by topic, chapter by chapter, finish off everything that needs to be finished off for each chapter. And don't say that, I will do my preparation and my practice after the entire portion is over. There is no such concept as portion is over. You started with a chapter, complete that chapter, then move to the next chapter, complete that chapter, and so on. So by June or July, ideally, you should be in a situation where you have completed the basic curriculum start to end. You've gone through the basics, you've done your own practice, because that is the time when your mock test will begin for CAT 2021, and you are in the best possible state to appear for the mocks, because then you are not doing your basic preparation. Then you are saying my basic preparation is done. Now, how do I use my basic preparation to do well in the test and learn from the test as to how to improve my performance in the test? So if you've started already, from now till June, try and complete your basic curriculum and then build on your basic preparation.
Yes. Yes. So those who are starting off with their CAT preparation, so will definitely need a guiding hand. And you, as sir, say that you have 1 year, so to make the most of the 1 year, and how you can make and how you can maybe make it on IIM and score or 99 plus in all the management entrance exams. So I'd really recommend all of you to take a look at the council program. So Parag sir will be there to help you out and chart out a 1 year study plan for you and help you identify your areas of weakness and strength. So yeah, please take a look at council. So sir, I think we have covered almost all the questions that have been asked. So there are questions which are repeat questions. So guys, please watch the webinar once we end the live session. So thank you so much, sir, for your time. It's great interacting with you. And guys, all the best for CAT 2020 and for all the other exams like NMAT, ZAT, IFT. So in case you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Send us emails at editor@insideiim.com, or feel free to reach out to us on any of our social media platforms. We'll be happy to help you out. Thank you so much,
Devan. It was a pleasure being a part of this webinar. What I have said turns out to be useful for some of the students at least, and pleasure being here. Great. Thank you so much, Devan, for having me over.
So thank you for being a part. Thank you so much, sir. I have ended the stream.